How are you?
Hi, Tom. How are you, man?
Not too bad. So we should go back to what we were saying before we started recording, which I was saying to you, it's an interesting time to have you here. I'm happy to have you here, of course. But normally, after you put out a record, you'd be on the road. How are you doing with staying still?
I'm okay because I've been on the road since I was 18 years old, right? So that's 34 years. It's been a long time. I started touring when I was 18. I left school. I jumped in a van with my friends, and I was fortunate enough to see the world through the windshield of a Dodge van. That was my ticket to life. And ever since then, I've been circling the planet over and over again, and music takes me to these beautiful places where I meet amazing people and have incredible experiences. And, over time that becomes like your cycle of life. It's almost like another trip around the sun. Okay, cool. Another album. Okay, cool. Another tour. And to have it all just stop was useful in some ways because, you don't want that to define you. So you get to the point where you're sort of left on your own. Like, who am I? What do I do? Why am I here? And without sounding like, some crazy existential trip, I was like, okay, I'm a hyperactive creative spaz. So what do I do? Like, am I just going to make 5 lasagnas a day? Am I going to start writing short stories from my life? Am I going to start writing more music? But it sort of twists you up and makes you rethink a lot of why you're here and what you're doing. So,
and where did you get with that?
I mean, my lasagna is awesome. Come on. I made so many lasagnas that it got to the point where I've got a bolognese that'll blow your mind. But no, first of all, I have 3 children. They've all grown up in my world of going away for 2 weeks and coming home for 2 weeks and going away for 2 weeks and then coming with me on the road for 2 months and things like that. So it was a welcome change for the family to really connect. But the most frustrating part was not letting people have the music that we had made. We finished the record before the world just locked down. So we were ready to go out on the road. We had designed this album to be a stadium album, to be a festival album, to be one of those things where tens of thousands of people sing along. And then everything stopped. And I thought, okay, well, that's not the only reason we make music. We make music so that people can hear it and find some escape or joy or happiness or relief or whatever it is. And that's when this light went off in my head. And I thought, okay, the touring thing is kind of like a phantom limb. Like, it's still sort of itchy,
Yeah.
But that's not the only reason why we do what we do.
It's such a beautiful record, and I didn't really know what I was expecting when I was going into it, but I was surprised by it at different times. And I was wondering, this is your 10th record, right? And I don't know if a 10th record, Dave, is something that only I would notice, like people from outside your band would notice, oh my God, the 10th record. Or whether going in there, you might have said to yourself or to the fellas in the band, geez, this is our 10th record. Maybe we should do something special.
Yeah, usually for the last 25 years, we would go into the studio and make an album and think, okay, if this is our last album, we've got to make it good. Wow. Right? We don't walk into the studio like, we're the Foo Fighters and we're going to make a gigantic, huge hit record. It doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
It's best to walk into the studio feeling like a new band, because in a lot of ways you have to start again every time you make an album.
Really?
This time was a little bit different because I wanted to use the last 25 years as some sort of reference, right? Of what not to do. Because, there is something to the idea of longevity. How do you keep that? And how do you work that? And basically it's all about pleasing yourself, surprising yourself, and maybe doing something that you weren't aware you could do. So I looked at all this old music. I'm like, okay, we've done the loud, noisy punk rock stuff. We've done like the heavy, dissonant screaming stuff. We've also done like this like gentle, beautiful, acoustic orchestrated music and kind of everything in between, you know, then like bubblegum, 3.5, 4 minute long, like mid-tempo pop rock songs. But the one thing that we hadn't done was really focus on like some kind of groove, like some sort of boogie or some sort of, you know, I hate to say like we wanted to make a dance album. We wanted to make an album that would make you dance, right? So, and that happening 25 years into our career to me meant something. It was like, okay, this isn't the gold watch. This isn't the soundtrack to our retirement. Like this, like the party starts now. And as embarrassing as like my kids are when they see me dancing in the living room, like, I don't care. Like, I don't care who's watching anymore. Like, I'm going to dance the way I dance. And so that was kind of this record to me.
Well, I think this is a great example of it. Just take a listen to this.
If you want to, I'll be the one, be the tongue that will swallow you. Shame, 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 shame.
That is Foo Fighters and Shame, Shame from their new album, Medicine at Midnight. I'm speaking with Dave Grohl. You know, I think what you hear there, at least or what I hear, is similar to what you were saying before. I think that metaphor you gave of, you know, dancing and nobody's watching, and you can dance and people make fun of you, but nobody's watching, is powerful, not just because it's a dance record, but because I don't hear you proving anything to anybody on this record. I hear you making the music that you want to make here. Talk to me a little bit about that, maybe through the context of this song.
Well, that song was actually a real turning point in the recording process, like during those sessions. You know, we had demoed these songs, these instrumentals, and we sort of handpicked them and thought, okay, well, this one might work, this one might work, this one might work. But you never really know until you all get in there and start doing it together. There were a few songs that we recorded that just sounded too much like the Foo Fighters, which we shelved, like we scrapped them. We're like, you know, if something sounded too familiar, we would kind of put it on the sideline.
Really?
Because we wanted to find that feeling, that excitement of like discovery or doing something that you hadn't done before. So that song in particular was maybe like a few weeks into the recording process, and it happened really quickly. It happened with a basic idea that was just a simple drum beat, and then with this finger snapping foot thing going over it that went. So first of all, I'm a wannabe tap dancer. Okay, like that's one of my life goals is to become a tap dancer.
I think you'd be all right at it. I think you'd be pretty good at it.
Who knows? I could do the tap part. I don't know about the dancing. But so by the end of the day, we'd recorded that song, and it was a clear diversion from anything we had done before. And that's when I got really excited, because I thought, okay, we're capable of change. You know, we're capable of progress. And that to me means, oh my God, we still have a pulse. Like, okay, we can, like, yes, let's turn the wheel in that direction. Let's go, 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 go. Keep going, keep going. And it was inspiring, you know. First of all, we didn't record the record in like a laboratory-esque studio in Hollywood. We found this funky old house, and we basically built a studio in the house. So the drums are in the living room. I did vocals in the upstairs bathroom. Someone's making chili in the kitchen while someone's reading on the front porch. And it was like, the experience of it was really exciting. But the idea was to sort of like push forward instead of just remain in the same place for another 25 years.
That's so funny. I mean, because I would think that, I mean, obviously I don't know, but I would think when you write songs like, you know, Everlong or My Hero or just Times Like These, you know, we'll call them like anthemic, like songs that have meant a lot to emotionally, existentially, and spiritually to people in their entire lives. And not a lot of people get one of those songs, much less, I mean, I just named 3, but there's a load of them. You know, I would be surprised, I suppose, if there wasn't some kind of pressure on yourself to try and create that again. You know what I mean?
You know, yeah, the funny thing is, there is pressure, but no obligation, right? So there is this consideration for the listener, but no responsibility, really. So it's kind of this funny balance where
That's
it's like, okay, when I write a song, I want you to sing along with me. I do. Like, I'm extending my hand to the listener, saying like, come on, let's do this together. And of course that applies to the live thing. And let me tell you, when we go out and play a show where there's 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 people, and everyone joins in unison and sings along to a song like My Hero or Best of You or whatever it is, that is such a powerful moment that can only be found. It's hard to find in life, where so many people with so many differences can join in unison for 3 minutes or 3 hours, right? So, of course, I take that into consideration when I'm writing songs. If I write a lyric that I think would sort of not only engage but connect with the listener emotionally, I'm going to keep that, because I think that's one of music's, most powerful, abilities, is just to be able to, like, I'm connecting with people I might not ever meet. And we're singing this song together live, and I can see their faces. We might not touch each other, but we do in this way, like with this song. And that to me is, it's so powerful. And it really is one of the, it's one of not only like the miracle of music, it sounds really cheesy, but it's also like maybe my life's greatest reward is to be able to do that with the fucking world.
How does it feel? How does it feel to be singing, the end of All My Life or something like that, and to have tens and tens of thousands of people? I don't know. How does that feel? How does it feel?
Oh, it's insane. I mean, it's crazy. Like, it's like this crazy cathartic primal scream therapy kind of thing where everyone's just going together. It's like an army, but there's no war. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's incredible. There was a time when I broke my leg once, like 5 or 6 years ago, but I didn't want to stop touring, and so I had this chair built that looked like this like rock and roll, like laser throne. It was insane, right? And so every night they would literally like carry me, put me on the throne, curtain comes up, and I'm sitting there conducting a stadium from this chair. It was hard not to feel like Julius Caesar. Okay. There were times where I'm like, be careful. Okay. Like, go back to the hotel, order a pizza and go to sleep, but ultimately it's, it is that connection that I do take into consideration, but I don't necessarily consider it an obligation. I don't consider it a responsibility. But I do, of course, wish that that I'm able to connect with the listener in a way that we could both share a song.
It's beautiful, and I feel like I got a taste of it just then. I want to play you something else. This is just from the other day. Take a listen to this. That is Foo Fighters performing Times Like These at the inauguration of the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden, last month. I'm speaking with Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters. You dedicated this performance to teachers, including your own mom, Virginia. Actually, you and I spoke once before. You and I talked when you came on for the book with your mom, your mom's book. That was years ago. I remember that now.
Yeah, that was a while back.
I mean, what an interesting time to put that out. For that song to come out. You play on Biden's inauguration. You grew up just outside of D.C., you see the storming of the Capitol. You see the inauguration happening on television. Your song is a part of it, the latter. How are you feeling?
I mean, you have to understand that sometimes it seems so surreal that I feel like I'm standing beside myself and watching it happen, right? So I've actually written a little bit about how it's like your life flashing before your eyes as it's happening. So it's strange. I mean, they're really, it's hard for me to like connect all of those dots, you know, because there is a lot of, there is a lot of full circle going on there. Like I grew up outside of Washington, D.C. My father was a Republican speechwriter. You know, he was involved in politics. I spent time on Capitol Hill. So, you know, putting all of those things together with the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, being a teacher, and my mother being a public school teacher for 35 years, retired now. And, you know, I mean, all of these things kind of connected together to, you know, to then this performance of a song that I wrote 18 years ago. It's not a political song at all. It's just a song about hitting some crossroads in your life where you feel that you need some sort of like rebirth or some restart, but you have hope. You know, I've always thought that when someone dear to you, someone close to you passes away, you have to start life all over again. So you have to do everything in life all over again. Your first cup of coffee since you've lost that person, your first trip to the grocery store since you've lost it, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's basically what that song's about, you know, learning to love again, learning to live again, things like that. But I think, you know, the reason why we were asked to perform was because, you know, in the States, we need that. And so it's a rebuilding in a hopeful way. And I think that's why they requested that we play that song. And it was an honor to
Right.
do.
I mean, the Foo Fighters, maybe I'm a bit nervous saying this to you, have never struck me as a political band.
Well, I mean, I can assure you that we all vote.
Yeah, you know what I mean, though. You know what I mean. You know, given that you all come from punk rock and your previous bands, you know, even before Nirvana, right?
Well, you know, it's funny because I think there are a few sides to the political conversation. One of them is like logistical or specific. The other is just emotional. And so I consider us a bit more on the emotional side of politics, you know, rather than be specific about people or issues or things. I'd rather focus on like compassion.
Yeah.
Okay. Focus on understanding, right? Okay.
Yeah, empathy. Yeah.
Things like that. Empathy,
Yeah.
right? Things like that where, you know, I feel like, listen, man, the world isn't as big as you think it is. You know, take it from me. I've circled it a couple hundred times. I've been around this planet a lot. And I'll have you know that the world gets smaller and smaller and smaller every day. And so we have to cooperate with each other in order to take care of it and ourselves. And so that's, you know, so I usually land on the side of like compassion and understanding and cooperation and collaboration, things like that. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, there are references to these things in a lot of Foo Fighters songs that I've never really come out and said like, guess what? Guess who this one's about? Guess why?
Dukakis.
But it's which is the most unfortunate name in politics. Come on, like there was just he was doomed from the start with a name like that. So so yeah, I mean, but when asked, I consider it, you know, not like it's my civic duty. And again, I said duty, not my civic duty.
We got Dukakis and duty in this interview. We're not going to be on the air much longer anyway. That's fine.
Yeah, to be involved or included or whatever. But I do, you know, I do consider it important if I feel the need to be there, and so sometimes we do.
It's well, you've been generous with your time. I don't want to take too much more of it, but It was interesting doing two things at once listening to this record. So listening to the new Foo Fighters record, I'll say to you, perhaps feeling a bit nervous talking to you as you and the Foos and Nirvana loom large for me, right? And at the same time, I went back and read a bunch of the early interviews with you when Foo Fighters began and getting ready for this one, right? And man, they were almost all about Nirvana. They were about Kurt, right? They were about Kurt. They were about, I mean, you said something so powerful. You said, like, I am constantly meeting people for the first time and they're asking me about the worst thing that's ever happened to me when they would talk to you about Kurt's death. And it's just amazing how it all turned out. And turned out implies that you had no power over it. You obviously have such power and you have such conviction and such an incredible work ethic. But coming out of one of the biggest bands in the world, you form another band that now has its own million-person fan base, that has its own, game-changing life. Like, I just wondered if you ever had a chance to reflect on it.
Only when I do interviews.
You're welcome.
No, I mean, I think that every musician begins in the same place. It starts from the same place, which is some sort of connection to music or an artist or a song. And then once an instrument's placed in your hands, that becomes your life love and your life challenge, right? All you want to do is figure this out. You will never figure it out, but you spend your life trying to figure it out. So that like desire to write or to perform, it comes from that place. It still comes from that place every time you pick up an instrument. It's no different. I mean, it might be 40 years later, but that it's like this intrinsic or some sort of like internal desire just to do it, Well, along the way, if you're lucky, people listen. And then it becomes, it changes. I mean, did I think that this band would still be here 25 years later after it started with a demo tape that I did in 6 days? That is the first record. No, of course not. It was like every time we made a record, it was because we felt like that kid with an instrument in their lap at like 10 or 11 years old. And then we make another record and we look at each other like, you want to do it again?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it again. And the reason why we do is because of that feeling. So, like the bells and whistles, oh my God, like, yeah, keep them coming. I love it. It's great. Like, I'm not that guy that says that I hate being a successful musician. It's fucking awesome. Like it is. Yeah. It
looks all
great,
good,
man.
Yeah.
I'm super into it. But it's not the only reason why I do it, And I could say the same thing for someone like Paul McCartney. Jamming with Paul McCartney, it's like you can see the 10-year-old kid in his eyes when he sits down at a drum set or plays an instrument. Like it's still there. And I think that is what that's the battery, that's the fuel, that's the engine that keeps musicians just doing it forever. Like, am I going to be up on stage screaming "Best of You" when I'm 75 years old? I don't know, but I'm not going to be. I'll still be playing music. I know that.
That's lovely. Yeah, I guess that was what I was reflecting on, was that there was a world in which you leave Nirvana, or Nirvana ends, or whatever, however we want to characterize it. And you go, well, you know what? I'll play some music, I'll play some clubs and everything, but that was it, man. I was in the biggest band in the entire world. Like I guess I was just grateful that you didn't. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, also when Nirvana ended, like I just shut off all the music. I turned off the radio and put the instruments away, and just sitting behind a drum set just felt too painful. There was trauma there. And but then I realized that music was the thing that had always saved my life. So maybe it will do it again. And so the Foo Fighters, to me, it represents a lot more than just like a band and songs and t-shirts and stadiums and stuff. It really does represent some sort of continuation of life. Like it's like I was 25 years old when Nirvana ended, and I was not I was not done, and I wanted to live, and going through something like that, it's like, it does make you wake every day and be thankful and grateful that you have the option to survive. And so that really was like the beginning of the Foo Fighters. It was like, oh man, like I don't care if we're like jumping in a shitty old van again and we're playing clubs that hold 200 people. Like I just want to play. I want to live. I want to be with my guys, be with my fellas, and just run around screaming at people into a microphone. Like that's what that makes me feel alive, and that's what the band represents. So still,
well, that's what I was going to say, and maybe this is a good way to end it. When you listen to this record. If you don't, I mean, when you listen to this record, you hear a love of life, an appreciation of joy, and it all makes sense to me there. So thanks for it. It's a lovely record.
Thanks, Tom. You're welcome.